If you've never been to Disney World, you're probably aware that it's expensive, has a big castle, cool rides, some insufferably cheesy promos, but there's a lot more to it than that to understand exactly what is Disney World. Hi, I'm the Frugal Brit, and for this video I'm going to provide an introduction to Walt Disney World that is aimed mainly for first-timers who know very little about Walt Disney World, or anyone that's looking for a bit of a refresh. And as part of that, I'm going to clarify some misunderstandings, provide a brief history, and give a guided tour of all the main elements that make this incredible holiday destination. If you're headed to Disney World soon, don't forget to subscribe if you want Disney World tips, tricks, reviews, and other Orlando vacation content. To start with, let's clarify some misunderstandings, and apologies in advance if any of this is super obvious. So Disney World, or Walt Disney World as it's officially named, is not the same thing as Disneyland. Disneyland is the theme park and resort area in Anaheim, California, whereas Walt Disney World is the name of a much bigger resort complex in Orlando, Florida. You've also got parks and resorts named Disneyland around the world, but there's only one Walt Disney World. Another misunderstanding is that Disney World is the name of the theme park with the castle, which is technically not correct. The name of that particular park is the Magic Kingdom, which is located inside the Walt Disney World Entertainment Complex. Another thing that some people misunderstand is Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure with its Wizarding World of Harry Potter as being part of Disney World, which is not the case. These are independent attractions owned by Universal and are completely separate to the competing Walt Disney World. But many people, especially my fellow Brits, will visit theme parks from both on longer vacations. If you've never been to Disney World, you may be under the impression that you have to book a hotel resort within Disney World and through Disney's website. This is not the case. There are tons of off-site hotels available for all price ranges. You typically get more for less in terms of luxury, but miss out on some of the on-site benefits, which I'll touch on later in the video. There are pros and cons to staying off-site. It polarizes a lot of people, but as someone who's done both, it can be the right choice depending on your circumstances. The last thing I want to cover is that regardless of whether you have booked to stay off-site or on-site, you do also need to factor in paying for your theme park tickets. More on that towards the end of the video. Alright, so here's my brief history of Walt Disney World. So in 1955, Walt Disney decided to open Disney's first theme park named Disneyland in California. His motivation for Disneyland, which became a huge success, was to provide a theme park that would entertain both children and adults, which is something that an amusement park rarely provided at the time. Also, Walt was very passionate about technology and American history, which heavily influenced its design. About a decade later, Walt had even more ambitious plans in store. Having become frustrated with the lack of space and the surrounding hotels and businesses taking advantage of the park, Walt began to secretly acquire 30,000 acres of land in central Florida. However, Walt didn't just want to build a theme park. Instead, he originally intended to build a futuristic city known as the Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow. Unfortunately, the board didn't share Walt's enthusiasm for building a city of tomorrow and instead believed that they should be focusing on a theme park resort. In the end, to please the board of directors, Walt did agree to building a theme park in the northmost corner of the park, which you could only access via the futuristic city. Today, the idea of Disney building a futuristic city seems kinda crazy, but this was a uniquely optimistic time in terms of technology in the 20th century, with Walt having Elon Musk levels of success and ambition at the time. Tragically, Walt Disney died on the 15th of December 1966, weeks after he had presented his Florida project, and reality set in for the board of directors, who decided that maybe it's probably better to not be responsible for the creation of a giant futuristic city. So the Disney company, now led by Walt's brother, opened up Walt Disney World on 1st of October 1971. This included the Magic Kingdom theme parks with a few on-site hotels, including a camping ground. These original hotels have somewhat increased a little bit in price since then. As mentioned, Walt's plans for his Progress City were abandoned after his death, but the concept did evolve into what we now know as EPCOT Center, which opened in 1982. However, whilst this park did showcase new technology, the park resembles more of a World's Fair than a community of tomorrow. In the late 80s, Disney had become quite concerned about the prospect of Universal opening a theme park in Orlando, and Disney's CEO at the time decided to copy the concept of Universal Studios by building a theme park known as MGM Studios, which we now know today as Disney World's Hollywood Studios. Disney's fourth theme park, which is Animal Kingdom, opened in 1998. That's the end of part 2. If you want to know more about Disney park history, I can recommend this illustrated book which has some really cool vintage maps and artwork. I'll provide an affiliate link in the description. So I've introduced you to the names of the 4 theme parks in Disney World, but now I'll provide you with a brief overview of each park, including its 2 water parks in chronological order. Starting with the first and most famous, you have Magic Kingdom, which was based largely on the original Disneyland theme park and dedicated to the fairy tales and Disney characters. This, of course, is the park represented by the huge Cinderella castle inspired by the movie in 1950. It's divided into 6 themed lands circled by the Walt Disney World Railroad. The first land is Main Street, USA, which has been described as the park's opening credits. It's styled as a turn-of-the-century small American town lined with shops selling merchandise and food, with Disney's iconic turn-of-the-century music playing throughout. There's even a working barber shop over here. The second land here is Adventureland, which aims to give you the feeling of mystery in exploring foreign lands resembling remote jungles all around the world, with an extension resembling a Caribbean town square. It contains the classic attractions such as Pirates of the Caribbean and Jungle Cruise. Next up we have Frontierland, where guests can relive the American Old West, from the romanticised cowboys and Native Americans to exploring the mysteries of the rivers of America. It contains classic attractions such as Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, Splash Mountain and Country Bear Jamboree. Moving towards the centre of the park, you have Liberty Square, which is inspired by a colonial American town set during the American Revolution. This has the Liberty Bell riverboat, which travels down the park's Rivers of America. At the top end of the park you have Fantasyland, which is themed in a medieval fair carnival style and is the biggest land at Magic Kingdom, with several sections. To quote Walt Disney himself, Fantasyland is dedicated to the young at heart and those who believe that when you wish upon a star, your dreams come true. So within Fantasyland you have the Castle Courtyard, the Storybook Circus, and the Enchanted Forest. The final land at Magic Kingdom is Tomorrowland, which used to be all about future technology, but Disney soon realised that it was quite expensive to keep up with the technology of tomorrow year after year, so they instead decided to retheme it to a 1950s idea of the future. So lots of rockets, UFOs and robots, etc. The second theme park in this list is EPCOT. Inspired by the unrealised futuristic city that never came to be that I touched on earlier, this is the second largest in Walt Disney World and twice the size of the Magic Kingdom, and is dedicated to the celebration of human achievement, namely technological innovation and international culture, and has been referred to as a permanent World's Fair. If you've never heard of this park, you probably will have seen the gigantic golf ball building that is known as Spaceship Earth, which does actually feature a ride inside. EPCOT is divided into 2 main themed areas, the first being Future World, which serves as the park's main entrance and contains Spaceship Earth and features a variety of avant-garde pavilions that explore innovative aspects and applications including technology and science, with each pavilion featuring self-contained attractions and distinct architecture in its design. The second area at EPCOT is World Showcase, which contains 11 World's Fair pavilions, each themed and dedicated to represent a specific country, and so I'll give you a snippet of each country that gets a look in. The third theme park is Disney's Hollywood Studios, dedicated to the golden age of Hollywood. This park is divided into 7 themed areas inspired by fantasized versions of either existing locations found in Hollywood and Los Angeles or imagined worlds from Hollywood stories. First up, we have Hollywood Boulevard, inspired by the real street of the same name, and serves as the park's main entrance and operates in the same vein as Main Street USA at Magic Kingdom. Next, we have the Echo Lake Land, influenced by suburban Californian architecture from Hollywood's golden age and anchored around the area's namesake lake. The third land is Grand Avenue, which is themed as a gentrified historic district inspired by the real location with the same name in downtown Los Angeles. Moving on to what is probably the most popular land at this park is Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. This is unsurprisingly set in the Star Wars universe on the remote planet of Batuu. The attractions here include Star Wars Rise of the Resistance and Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. Next up is Toy Story Land, inspired by the movie series of the same name, themed to Andy's backyard with 3 different rides and attractions. This is another very popular part of the park. The second to last land at this park is Animation Courtyard, home to attractions based on films and characters created by Walt Disney Animation Studios. The entrance is marked by a square studio arch and was originally the starting point for the studio backlot tour. The final land at Disney's Hollywood Studios is Sunset Boulevard, inspired by the real thoroughfare of the same name, and was the first expansion of the park that opened in 1994. This is where you'll find one of my favourite rides of all time, the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. You've also got the very popular rock and roller coaster themed to the music of Aerosmith. The fourth theme park on offer within Disney World is Disney's Animal Kingdom, which is a zoological theme park that happens to be the largest in the world, covering 580 acres. This park is dedicated and themed entirely around the natural environment and animal conservation, which Walt had a keen interest in. The park is distinguished from the rest of Walt Disney World's theme parks in that it features traditional attractions whilst also exhibiting hundreds of species of live animals. Disney's Animal Kingdom is divided into 7 themed areas. To start with, I'll cover Oasis, which is the park's equivalent to Main Street USA and provides a transition from the park's entrance to the world of animals. The main paths feature animal exhibits and dense vegetation, and trees lead deeper into the park and then onto the next area, Discovery Island, located right in the centre of the park, situated within the park's Discovery Waterway. This serves as the central hub connecting the other sections of the park by bridges. Over here, you'll also find the Tree of Life surrounded by trails and animal enclosures. Over to the southwest is the Pandora, the World of Avatar area, themed to James Cameron's Avatar series. This land's marquee attraction is Avatar Flight of Passage, a 3D flying simulator that allows guests to fly on a Banshee across the Pandoran landscape. Heading north of the park, you'll find a mini Africa area, which is one of the original areas of the park, set in the fictional East African port village of Harambe. This area contains several animal exhibits, a safari adventure, as well as some Imagineered creations, such as a Zanzibar-inspired fortress. There's also another smaller section of the park called Rafiki's Planet Watch, connected to the Africa section. On the east side, you have the Asia section, which is set in the fictional kingdom of Anandapur, which means place of many delights. This place aims to evoke the traits of Cambodia, India, Indonesia, Mongolia, Nepal, and Thailand. The visual focal point of Asia is Expedition Everest, Legend of the Forbidden Mountain, which is a steel roller coaster ride through the Forbidden Mountain of the Himalayas. The last area to cover at Animal Kingdom is Dino Land USA, which is themed around dinosaurs and other extinct prehistoric life. The area is anchored by the Dino Institute, which is a fictitious paleontological facility. Moving on now to the water parks, first up is Disney's Typhoon Lagoon, which opened in 1989, home to one of the world's largest outdoor wave pools. The theme of the park is a tropical paradise that has been ravaged by a typhoon. Its centrepiece is Miss Tilly, a shrimp boat impaled upon a mountain that erupts a 50-foot geyser of water every hour. The second water park within Disney World, which opened in 1995, is Blizzard Beach. The story of this park is that a freak snowstorm in the area led to the development of Florida's first ski resort. As the snow didn't last long, this left behind a collection of waterlogged yet snowless ski jumps and chairlifts. The majority of the major attractions at the park are hosted atop of Mount Gushmore, which is an artificial hill with an elevation of 90 feet. So what tickets should you buy if you want to go to Walt Disney World, and where should you buy them? Well, there's lots of different places you can buy them, including directly from Disney, but my advice is that it's usually cheaper to purchase from an authorised third-party seller, but just be careful that they are authorised. I'll provide a link in the description for any authorised sellers that I would recommend. So what type of ticket is right for you? Well, as with pretty much every theme park, the longer you stay, the less you pay. If you're just looking to head to Disney World for one day, it can be super expensive and the cost per day substantially decreases with each day you add. Disney really tries its best to discourage people from heading to Disney World just for one day. Probably the best tip I can give with park tickets is to make sure you purchase several months in advance. Mainly because it's a lot cheaper, but also because this allows you to book FastPass selections up to 60 days before your trip, assuming you're staying on site. FastPass Plus is a free of charge, all digital ride reservation system that when used allows you to skip the main queues on some of the popular rides. So basically you make a FastPass reservation for a particular time, say 11:40 to 12:40, then you enter through the FastPass line with a minimal wait in line. The idea is obviously to get people out of lines and allow them to do other things while waiting for their ride reservation window. So how do you book a FastPass? Well, there's two ways to do this. You can book via the My Disney Experience app or the website before each visit, or you can do it via in-park kiosks for guests who don't have smartphones or those who didn't purchase tickets in advance. Do make sure you're not in that category. The FastPass is then stored on the Magic Band or your park tickets. Using the app, you can book 60 days in advance if you're staying on site, but otherwise you have 30 days to do so. Booking FastPasses is super important, so I would advise that you spend a lot of time researching how best to use it. So the resorts at Walt Disney World are classified into three main categories, them being deluxe, moderate, and value. Here are some of the things to expect from the value resorts. So these resorts will typically have double beds, rooms that open to the outside, that sort of motel style, a large centre pool, food court dining, and the value resorts have more of a focus on fun theming rather than luxury and culture, and you'll find more Disney characters at these resorts. Here's what to expect at the moderate resorts. You can expect bigger queen beds, themed rooms, large central pool areas with water slides, a kiddie pool, smaller quiet pools near each section for the big resorts, and both food court and table service dining. Off the top of my head, Port Orleans French Quarter is an exception to some of these rules. In a nutshell, the moderate resorts are suitable for those who want a little bit of luxury, slightly larger rooms, and some extra amenities. The theming is a bit more cultured with large lakes, rivers, and overall just a lot more effort put into the landscaping. With the deluxe resorts, you can expect Disney to turn up the theming quite a few notches, whether that's the African safari style at the Animal Kingdom Lodge or being whisked away to a tropical island at Disney's Polynesian Village Resort. You benefit from all the extras that the moderate resorts get, which I won't repeat, and also a few extra luxuries such as internal rooms, access from the inside of the hotel resorts, unlike the motel style from the other two categories. You have more variety in dining options, so you're not just relying on a buffet restaurant or a food court. In most cases, you will get a food court, a fancy table service restaurant, and also signature and character dining. The deluxe resorts have a few other amenities such as on-site gyms, salons, and valet parking. I would say one of the main appeals of a deluxe resort is the extra transportation options, which I'll cover in more detail in a later section. So in Disney World, you're certainly not short on choice when it comes to dining options throughout the parks and the resorts, whether that's quick service, fast food, or upscale table service restaurants. There's too many to mention in this introduction to Disney World. One thing you may want to consider for your vacation is the Disney Dining Plan, which is a prepaid meal package that allows guests to eat at Disney World restaurants without needing to use cash. It can be cost effective for families who intend to eat many meals at table service restaurants or character dining restaurants. but it's certainly not for everyone, as there are pros and cons. I'll provide a link in the description outlining this. One popular area within Walt Disney World is Disney Springs, which is an enormous shopping, dining and entertainment complex within Walt Disney World, which you don't need any tickets for. Do check out my top 10 restaurants in Disney Springs if you're headed this way for a bite to eat. Walt Disney World provides many different means of transport like buses, ferries, boats, monorails, the Skyliner. And one of the cool things about Disney World Transport is that it's entirely free to use. If you did want a bit more flexibility, you do have the option to bring your own vehicle, as there's plenty of parking lots, but it's definitely not essential. And keep in mind that it'll cost you $25 per day to park. So now I'll provide a brief overview of the main forms of transport. Starting with the least interesting is the extensive Disney bus transportation. This is pretty solid and covers all the resorts and everywhere you'd want to go, but depending on what time of year you're travelling, the queues and crowds can be quite annoying. The next form of transportation to cover is Disney's iconic monorail system. With over 150,000 daily riders, it makes it one of the most heavily used monorail systems in the world. There's 3 specific monorail lines at Disney World, all originating from the Transportation and Ticket Centre. You have a few different boat services in Disney World for various purposes, so guests of select Disney Resort hotels can embark on complimentary boat rides throughout Disney World. You have ferries, water taxis and other Disney water transportation, bringing passengers to and from parks, resorts and Disney Springs. In 2019, Disney introduced its Skyliner transportation, allowing you to travel by aerial gondola that connects EPCOT, Hollywood Studios and 4 of the Disney resorts, which are Disney's Caribbean Beach, Pop Century, Art of Animation and the Riviera Resort. Another thing that I should mention is that whilst the transportation is free in Disney World, it is quite common for people who want a bit more flexibility to book an Uber, Lyft or a taxi to travel between different locations. Well, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. Please hit the like button if you found it useful and check out some of my other videos. And if you're interested in future Orlando vacation content, don't forget to subscribe.